Good evening. Staff at breaking point, serious failings and a lack of faith in management. That's how a damning report described maternity services at Cwm Taf Morgannwg Health Board today, as it was put into special measures by the Health Minister. That means it'll be under direct government control. The report condemned the care received by some mothers and babies as falling well short of what's expected. It comes after 26 deaths at two hospitals. They are the Prince Charles and the Royal Glamorgan Hospital. In a moment, I'll be asking the Chief Executive if she will resign tonight. But first, our health reporter James Crichton-Smith is at the Royal Glamorgan for us. James, are babies safe there tonight?
Well, Kylie, that is the question on the lips and in the minds of expectant parents across the South Wales valleys tonight. This report, more than 100 pages of it, lists error after error after error. It is nothing short of scathing, and it sent shockwaves across Wales. Systemic failures of maternity services at Cwm Taf Morgannwg Health Board are tonight laid bare in the words of the women who experienced them.
I'm broken from the whole experience, the lack of care and compassion.
I felt worthless, like I didn't matter.
We were not listened to. By time we were, it was too late.
In the maternity units of the Prince Charles and Royal Glamorgan hospitals, there was a failure to learn, a failure to listen, a failure to provide safe care to mothers like Jess. She lost her baby Macy in March last year.
All I remember is just telling them to get the baby away from me because she wasn't breathing. 9 minutes was when they actually took her from me and got her help, and the crash team came. We're being told we don't know. We don't know if there's something wrong. We don't know if it's just one of those things.
And you want those answers?
And we want it, yeah. Well, yeah.
Since then, there have been reassurances from health board bosses, revelations of warnings of units at breaking point, and now a scathing assessment of a service whose staff fear blame, suspension or disciplinary action if they raise safety concerns. Alex gave birth 4 weeks ago at Prince Charles Hospital and saw for herself a system under extreme pressure.
Staff were talking to us, telling us that they felt like they couldn't come forward. They felt like they were banging the drum and telling top management and people in charge that this was the situation, but nobody was listening to them.
We need staff in the NHS here in Wales to be able to recognise problems, to be able to feel free that they can report issues, report incidents. We need a culture of transparency. We do not need a culture of blame.
What's more, a review of maternity cases dating back to 2010 is now being undertaken. There are potentially hundreds of cases here that are going to be looked at again.
That's correct. So over the last 9 years, we will look at any incident that may have learning for the organisation, or might be that there is a requirement for redress or for putting things right for those individual families.
And the number of families seeking legal advice continues to rise.
The cases that I see, they're not dependent upon there being a lack of staff. They're very much dependent upon staff not contacting more senior staff when things have gone wrong. And then when things do go wrong, the response to things going wrong has simply not been adequate or transparent.
So tonight, the bittersweet vindication for families who've lost children or who are living with the catastrophic effects of poor care in Cwm Taf Morgannwg maternity units. Just 6 months ago, this health board was deemed to be operating normally. It's now one step away from special measures. How dramatic the decline in public trust has been, how long it'll take to be rebuilt.
Well, I'm joined now by the Chief Executive of the Health Board, Alison Williams. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. You've been in charge since 2011. This has all happened under your watch. Are you going to resign tonight?
May I firstly say that I'm deeply sorry to all of those families that we have failed. Clearly there have been failings in the care that they have received, and the experiences that the individual women have shared with us are nothing short of heartbreaking. In terms of my responsibility, I accept my responsibility very seriously. I, together with the board and our staff, have a key responsibility to stick with this and to put this right.
So that's a no then, you're not going to resign?
I've never walked away from a problem. I don't believe it's the right thing to do. My responsibility is to put this right for the women we serve.
Okay, I do wonder then what would make you resign, because it doesn't get much more damning than this report, does it? I mean, you've obviously read it. What would make you resign? Are you fit to do your job?
The report is a very sober and very heart-rendering account of the failings. Those failings are systemic in the sense that they are caused by a multitude of factors, not one.
All of them, though, seem to come back to you, don't they? They're all under your control. On your website, it says under your profile that you're passionate about high-quality care, clinical leadership, and empowering staff to deliver. Those were the things that this report says that you failed on.
I stand by those personal commitments and I feel very passionately about them personally. What we have to understand is a collective sense of responsibility for putting this right and for the failings. And I don't step away in any way from my personal responsibility in that.
Do you think, though, there might come a point where you think, you know, you have that responsibility, but you're not actually doing your job?
One of the things that the Minister has very helpfully announced today is that there is going to be an independent oversight of the way in which we now will take forward that maternity improvement plan. That independent oversight will clearly hold me, the board and our organisation to account for delivery. And that's going to be important to give that assurance to our staff and to the women that we serve.
We'll hear from him in a moment. Now, I've been a journalist for 18 years. I don't think I've ever read a report as damning as this, where the person responsible, that's you, hasn't resigned.
As I said, this is about taking responsibility, and that responsibility is not just about what's happened, but also about what we will and are determined to do to put it right.
People at home will be listening, though, with all respect. You know, we're talking about babies dying here, aren't we? And it must come to a point where you think, okay, I've failed these women and their babies who I'm supposed to be looking after.
I don't step away from that at all. I've said earlier, and I will say again, how deeply sorry I am personally, and on behalf of the board, how deeply sorry the organisation is. I still don't believe that walking away is the right thing to do, because that arguably is the easy thing to do.
Okay, so some might disagree with you. Let's just hear from the person ultimately responsible for the care received, that's the Health Minister. Our national correspondent Rob Osborne spoke to him earlier.
We are of course taking this incredibly seriously. That's why I've not just commissioned the review in the first place, but in accepting the recommendations and in announcing today a range of action to be taken. There is a real and undeniable commitment to make sure that we do deliver the improvements that families themselves want to see, because they have said their main message, they do not want this to happen to other families. They want lessons to be learned.
So if lessons to be learned, they don't want it to happen to other families and you want to see changes, then surely the Chief Executive will be handing in her resignation today to you. Do you have full confidence in her?
I have confidence in the ability of people in the organisation to recognise the scale of change that is required.
Do you have full confidence in the Chief Executive of Cwmtaf Health Board?
And I've answered, I have confidence in the capability of the Chief Exec and the whole team in Cwmtaf to make the scale of changes that are required.
She's been Chief Executive of Cwmtaf since 2011, not a recent appointment. On the website she says she's passionate about high quality patient care, clinical leadership and empowering staff to deliver. This report says that's not happening.
I know that both the Chief Exec and the Chair are incredibly disappointed in the content of the report, and that they accept the outcome of the report. How do we get to the point of delivering the improvement that is plainly required, and not to dance around and pretend that dismissing one person will deliver the significant cultural change that is required?
Where is accountability? Things have gone terribly wrong. Where is accountability? No one's going to lose their jobs. I presume you're going to tell me you're not going to resign. So where does the buck stop?
The buck stops and starts with everyone involved in the health service doing what they could and should do. That's about the board the people around that board table holding the executive team to account. It's about their leadership, it's about people who deliver the service, and it's also making sure we have the right numbers of staff in the right place to deliver the right care. Now, we haven't had that in this part of the health service. It is part of the picture that is painted, but to change the culture in an organisation, you need to bring people with you. And that's what's plainly required to improve the quality of care that people receive.
If this doesn't result in someone losing their job, what does have to happen in the NHS in Wales for someone to be held accountable and to be sacked?
I just think the focus on saying someone needs to be sacked is not the right thing to do, because it takes us away from what do we need to do to deliver improvement. And as I say, the view from families has been, and it's recounted in the report, that they want to be listened to so that other people don't go through this. They want to see improvement delivered. And I really don't think that taking a measure that might satisfy a headline in dismissing a single person.
It might satisfy the staff on the ground who clearly have concerns about leadership.
And it won't change the culture in that part of the service to get rid of the chief executive.
So the Health Minister there, Alison Williams, back to you. He says he has confidence in you. Do you have confidence in him? Do you think he should resign?
I think the Minister has made very appropriate steps today to put in place the assurance mechanisms that are going to be necessary to provide that detailed confidence.
So that's a no then, he's doing a good job, you think?
I think the Minister is taking very appropriate action in the face of this report.
OK. The highlighted deaths in this report were between 2016 and 2018. That review is now looking right back into 2010. There could actually be families watching this tonight who've been at your hospital, have lost a baby. What must they be thinking tonight?
When we initially started this piece of work, we identified that once we had done the work back to 2016, we would go back as far as individuals wanted us to go to look at any case. We have constantly encouraged anybody who has concerns about any of the care that they've received in our hospitals to come forward, talk to us. We will share openly with them the information that we have and work with them to make sure they fully understand what happened in their individual case.
OK, I'm sure you will get lots of people contacting you, unfortunately. The mothers that the assessor spoke to in this report said that they just simply didn't want anyone else to go through what they've been through, understandably. Will you come back onto our programme in, say, 6 months' time and talk to us about what you've done so that this doesn't happen again?
Can I thank those women for coming forward and the courage that they have shown in sharing their stories? I will absolutely commit to coming back on this programme or any others to share the progress that we're making with our improvement plan, and importantly to be talking to women and their families about how we can help the experience of care to improve for the future.
OK, we appreciate you coming on the programme. Alison Williams, thank you very much. Well, let's return to James now, our health reporter. James, you heard the Chief Executive there. What do you make of what she's had to say?
Well, I think the apology will be welcome by families, although they'll probably be thinking, well, we've heard apologies before, we want to see some changes take place. It's no surprise she won't resign. She's, of course, following the Health Minister, clearly determined to put things right. One interesting point about this oversight with special measures in place. Now, oversight would suggest from Welsh Government that there wasn't that confidence in the executives running the health board. We also, as you pointed out, have to remember that Alison Williams and the board, many of them were in place for the duration of this. So questions will continue to be asked about why they themselves were not asking questions earlier about what was going wrong. And again, as you pointed out, there will be families tonight perhaps eating their tea, having quite a shock, being told actually in 2010, when they thought it might have just been a mistake, there could have been someone at fault. I'll leave you with this final thought. A politician today summed it up like this: there are families across South Wales tonight who don't have a future generation because of failings by this health board.
James Crichton-Smith, thank you. And breaking news tonight, ITV News can exclusively reveal that a motion of no confidence in the Health Minister has been tabled. It's been put down by Plaid Cymru and will be debated next week. We can speak to our political reporter, Sean Jenkins, who's at the Senedd for us tonight. Sean, an extraordinary move. What happens now?
Yes, Kylie, it is an extraordinary move. But the question is, if this motion of no confidence were to be passed, would it mean anything? And the answer is, well, no, not really. So in that sense, it's more of a symbolic vote than anything else. The only motion of no confidence that could have any effect here in the Senedd is a motion of no confidence directly in Mark Drakeford as the First Minister or his government as a whole. Motions of no confidence in individual ministers, therefore, do not have any effect. They cannot be ousted in that way. So essentially, as long as Vaughan Gething has the backing of Mark Drakeford, the First Minister, and his support, he will remain the Health Minister of the Welsh Labour government. And in any case, it's very unlikely that a motion of no confidence would pass because, quite simply, the maths don't add up in the Senedd. It's very unlikely that Vaughan Gething's Labour colleagues and his ministerial colleagues would vote against him in a motion of no confidence. But what this does demonstrate, Kylie, is the strength of feeling here today in the Senedd, a sense of anger at, well, Vaughan Gething's refusal to step down. And earlier today, we spoke to Adam Price, the leader of Plaid Cymru, who had this to say.
It's a rare occurrence. It's not something, that you do lightly. And we've thought about it very, very carefully, but we feel we would be failing in our responsibility as members of this Parliament unless we said, look, enough is enough. People have suffered here the most terrible loss imaginable.
And the motion is to be debated next week here in the Senedd, Kylie. But as I say, it does demonstrate a strong sense of anger here today, with many AMs now questioning what more needs to happen, what more needs to take place before someone takes responsibility and before changes are made.
Sean Jenkins, thank you. Good evening. We start our programme tonight with a shocking fact that 349 people have taken their own lives in 1 year alone. That's almost one every single day. The majority of those are men. Wales has the second highest suicide rate in the UK. Tonight we bring you the stories of 3 families who've lost a loved one to suicide to talk about how to reduce those numbers and how they are united by grief. This special report now from our national correspondent, Rob Osborne.
My name's Georgina, and this is my dad, Paul. He was 49 years old when he took his own life.
My name's Kerry, this is my son Cale. He took his own life at Christmas time and he was 20 years old.
My name's Nicola and this is my son Jacob. He was 24 years old when he took his own life.
If I say suicides, can you sort of sum it up for me in a word or in a phrase, Nicola?
Devastating, unnecessary, preventable, life-wrecking.
What about you, Georgina?
Pain.
Pain.
I think that's the only word that really comes to mind straight away is pain, and that's not just for the people that are left behind, but the pain that that individual was suffering to make them do what they did.
Kerry?
Relief, because it was relief for my son to do what he did, for what he was going through.
Cale had mental health problems.
He did indeed, yes.
Say the word relief might shock a lot of people.
Yeah, but it was a relief for him. Yeah, and it was relief. He knew he was going to do it one day, so it was relief.
Tell me about Cale. What was he like?
Cale was, he was a lovely young lad. He did well in school and he went to the Merchant Navy and then developed psychosis when he was in the Merchant Navy, so he could see and hear things.
So today's been pretty hard. I had really bad thoughts about self-harming.
He was promoting mental health by putting videos up of all his medications, say that he uses during the day and things like that, and his voices, and it's not scared, don't be scared to talk.
And it's been less than a year for you. How have you been in that time?
It's been 7 months.
Difficult 7 months?
Yeah, very difficult.
Did you get any support when you...
I think I got a leaflet, but I've had no support yet. I'm just waiting still. There's waiting lists.
we're still seeing families who have been recently bereaved by suicide, and sadly nothing has changed. They're still not being offered that support.
Tell me a bit what Jacob was like.
There were no signs of any mental health problems. He was very popular, he was hardworking, he loved going to the gym. The biggest contributing factor that we believe that played a part in Jacob's suicide is cocaine, is that he'd taken cocaine the night before. And we believe that come down from cocaine was something that he couldn't manage that day.
Georgina, when I see pictures of your dad, Paul, he's smiling. We've seen videos where he's sort of the centre of the room.
No, there's some people who aren't here, so to have some friends.
So when you found out that he had taken his life, was it a surprise?
Yeah, it was. It was a huge shock. It wasn't expected at all, because he always seemed so happy and bubbly. Time's a healer, but it really isn't. I mean, you know, yes, it ensures that every day you can get up, get yourself washed and dressed and go to work and do the things that are expected of you, but it doesn't heal your heart. It'll forever be shattered as far as I'm concerned. So time definitely isn't a healer.
Language, you know, that still reinforces the stigma, and things of, you know, top themselves, and so and that's really hurtful. That's really painful for people who were bereaved by suicide.
I think, if anything, they were victims of a crime in the sense that there was no support there for them. Yeah.
Look, we've all experienced loss in our families, but not all of us have experienced suicide.
No.
Is it possible for anyone to contemplate what you three have gone through unless it's happened to you?
No. You've not only got your grief, you know, of losing a loved one, but you've got all these unanswered questions constantly, and that in itself is exhausting, coupled with your grief as well.
If they died by an illness, at least you could say, you know, okay, it was that killed them.
I'm a bit different again, because I knew why Cale wanted the voices gone out of his head, you see. So I sort of have got an answer, if you know what I mean.
That goes back to everybody being wired differently.
Of course. So suicide is another umbrella, isn't it, when we've got three completely different...
Yeah, it's complex, it's very complex.
You can't generalise it.
Listening to each other, do bits relate to your story, do you think?
Yeah. It's just nice to talk to. I've not spoken to anybody, really, that's had a suicide, you know, lost somebody close to suicide before.
Is there more we can do as a society? What do you think, Nicola?
Yeah, I think there can be, you know, more community cohesion, so people wanting to come together to make a difference and to learn about suicide and, you know, how to address somebody in a crisis, talk more openly about suicide.
We need to pay more attention to our loved ones and to the people around us, and ask questions and listen to them.
Well, as you say, you all come from different parts of Wales and you've all got different experiences, but you've all joined us here to talk about this, and I hope it's been useful for you, because I know it'll be useful to a lot of people at home. So from us, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Rob has joined me now, as you can see. Incredibly moving stories there, Rob. You've got more information this evening on those statistics we mentioned.
Yeah, Kylie, arguably this country's in a bit of a national crisis at the moment with what is or isn't happening with Brexit and what's happening with Parliament. Well, those three women will tell you that there's another national crisis in this country, and that's over suicide. And today the official statistics were released in this country, and I want to give you a few of them. You'll see them on the screen behind me now. 3,509, that's the number of men, women and children in Wales who took their life in a decade. Now, the majority of those will be men. In the latest figures for 2018, it's 72%. But here's another figure, 73%. That's the rise in the number of women taking their lives in just 2 years.
That is surprising, isn't it? You've reported on male suicide before, but these are worrying statistics now about women.
Absolutely. The focus has been for a long time, as you say, on men, because the figures have pointed us in that direction. But that rise in the number of female deaths between 2016 and 18 is something for people to pause and think about. And the reason that these mothers and the daughter have spoken out tonight is because they want us to not be scared of this subject, to speak about our feelings, to speak about our mental health, and not consider suicide a taboo subject. So hopefully we can reduce numbers in the future.
OK, Rob, thank you very much. Well, if you or anyone you know has been affected by any of the issues we've been discussing, the advice is to call the Samaritans. Their number is free to call. It's there. It's 116 123. That number again is 116 123.
Kylie, thank you and welcome to Normandy on the shores of northern France. It was here exactly 75 years ago that the greatest seaborne invasion in our history took place. Tens of thousands of Allied, American and Canadian troops came ashore on the beaches behind me in what was then Nazi-occupied Europe. You can probably see behind me the remnants of the so-called Mulberry Harbour, which brought ashore thousands of men and supplies. Today has been about remembering that sacrifice and a continent determined to rid itself of the menace of Nazism. Alexandra Hartley was watching today's extraordinary commemorations.
Marking the moment it all began, just before 7:30 in the morning, 75 years ago. Once again on the beaches of Normandy, those who fought here are honoured.
I just don't believe it. No, it's incredible. I never thought 75 years ago that I'd even get off the beach.
You come back, not to remember, but you never forget. I mean, when we first used to come over here, we used to come with 2 coaches full of veterans. Yesterday I come with 14 people and 2 veterans. And I've seen, you know, I get very emotional.
Where many of the fallen lie, there were moments to reflect and simply say thank you. Leaders united to unveil a long overdue new memorial here, a tribute to the more than 22,000 British troops who died in the battle for Normandy.
They didn't boast. They didn't fuss. They served. They did their duty. And they laid down their lives so that we might have a better life and build a better world.
This is the view and the journey that so many young soldiers would have experienced. Their objective was to cross the beach as quickly as possible, all risk being killed. Today, though, people have gathered on the beach to take the time to pause and reflect on the bravery and sacrifice made by so many.
To look at the Mulberry Harbour, to look at all the vehicles going in and out of the water and to try and imagine what it was like 75 years ago today. I just can't believe it.
Normandy veterans, salute.
For many veterans, this is likely to be the last big official commemoration. But those here today and those who died here will forever be remembered as heroes who changed the course of history and gave us the greatest gift of freedom. Alexandra Hartley, ITV News, Normandy.